Hello, welcome to PharmaTelevision News Review here at BioEurope in Hamburg 2012. On this show, I have Luc Dochez, who is the CBO or Chief Business Officer at a company called Prosensa based in Holland. Welcome.
Thank you, Fintan. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Good. Luc, we've talked before, but
yes.
Give us a reminder of what Prosensa is all about, particularly in the area of Duchenne's muscular dystrophy.
That's already a good start indeed. We are focused on Duchenne muscular dystrophy. So Prosensa is a rare disease company focused to help patients with rare genetic diseases using our RNA modulation platform. And the basic focus, or the biggest focus of the company is truly on Duchenne muscular dystrophy, where we use a technique called exon skipping, where we try to correct the genetic mistake at the RNA level, and then we hope to reproduce the dystrophin, which is the missing protein, and by doing that we can help the Duchenne patients and we can hopefully stabilize the disease or prevent any progression of this muscle disease, which is very devastating for families.
So basically the technology corrects the mistake that the body's making with the production of the particular protein.
That's a very good summary, and what it does is actually it does it at the RNA level, so really using RNA therapeutics and not at the gene level, which gives you the flexibility to to change dosing and optimize the dosing regimens as well.
Right. So the underlying basis to the disease is this exon mistake that's made by the body, but there's variance across different patient groups.
Absolutely. The technique requires a very personalized approach, because depending on the exact deletion that causes the problem, you need to have a different product to correct it again at the right level. So depending on the genotype, we need a different product. So it's all the same disease, but all different genetic causes, which all require different products. So in contrary to what people were doing before, saying having one medicine and then try to leverage that in many diseases, we really have one disease and we need to develop many products to help all the patients that would benefit from this therapy.
Right. And your lead product is done in a collaboration with GlaxoSmithKline.
Correct.
Could you tell us something about that alliance?
Yes, we signed the collaboration with GlaxoSmithKline in 2009, and we have progressed a lot since then. So the lead asset is now in phase 3 development, where actually recruitment has been recently finalized, and so we expect to have data from that by the end of next year. But next to that, the other programs are also progressing well, and part of them are in collaboration with GlaxoSmithKline, where a significant part of the Duchenne asset of the products that we need to help these patients is completely retained by us, because that's what we want to do as a company, is really help these patients, partly by doing that in partnership, but also by bringing it to the patients all the way ourselves.
Right. Of course, it's important for companies like yourselves to be well financed. You've recently raised some money. Could you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, we did a new financing round actually at the beginning of this year, where we further strengthened our syndicate. We already had a quite esteemed European investor syndicate with Abingworth, Life Sciences Partners, GIMV, and Idinvest out of France. But we were very happy and actually proud that we could add New Enterprise Associates out of the US to that syndicate. And so we did a 23 million euro financing round in the beginning of this year, and certainly the fact that an esteemed investor as NEA was making their first investment as a life sciences company in Europe and then picking us as their first choice really is something we're very proud of, and we feel it's very important for us as a company.
Right. The lead clinical trials that we just described are obviously very important, because it basically underscores the proof of concept of whether this is a viable therapeutic approach. You mentioned that you've now fully recruited for those phase 3 clinical trials. How long will it take before you have some announcement to make on the efficacy of the drug?
Yeah. It's a good question. It's also a difficult question to say. I think the trial will probably read out by the end of next year, and as the program is licensed to GlaxoSmithKline, they will determine when the exact time will be that they can release the data. But I think it's very important, and I'm sure that by end of next year, end 2013, we'll get a good view on the efficacy that we hope to see, of course, of this disease, as the patients all deserve a treatment, and so we're crossing our fingers, crossing our toes, and hope for the best that this.
Right. Of course, we should state, of course, this is it's got orphan status in terms of clinical development. But just finally, what sort of clinical endpoints are you looking for? What sort of development do you expect, or improvement do you expect to see for your patients?
Well, it's two different questions actually. In terms of the regulatory endpoint, there's only one validated, well-defined endpoint for Duchenne that is accepted by the major regulatory agencies like the FDA and the EMA, which is the 6-minute walk test. But it's only a endpoint that will give you an indication that you can indeed preserve the muscle functioning of these boys that suffer from the disease. So typically you expect a boy with Duchenne to between 7 and 10, 12 years old to rapidly decline and lose his ambulation. So every year they can walk 50 to 60 meters less in the 6-minute walk test, which is exactly what it says that it is. You walk for 6 minutes and you measure the walking distance. And so what we try to do is show that boys that will be on therapy, hopefully, will not show the decline that boys that were not on therapy will show in this endpoint. Having said this is the regulatory endpoint. Yep. We feel that with doing that, we will be able to preserve the muscle function of the boys, which goes much wider than only the ambulation. It will also enable them to keep moving their hands, which are typically affected later in the disease progression, but it's very important to these boys. So even patients that are already in a wheelchair, in our opinion, could benefit from the drug, but this is something we'll have to prove over time, and it's very difficult to make any definitive statements on that. But it's really to hope to preserve muscle function for these boys and give them as normal of a life as possible.
Right. And is there a repeated dosing regime as part of the clinical trial?
Well, we're still exploring the exact dosing regimen. In the pivotal study, it was a once-a-week subcutaneous administration that was given to the patients. But as this is a rare disease and in the orphan space, you have to have, you're trying to answer a lot of questions all at the same time. So we're also doing a dose regimen optimization study next to the dosing regimen that I just described. So I think also there are a lot of answers still to be provided, and hopefully they will come in the years ahead of us.
We look forward to that. Luc Dochez, thank you very much indeed for coming on the show.
Thank you.